The following radio program is for informational purposes only and is neither specific nor tailored financial advice to any individual. It is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any financial instrument. Always do your own due diligence and consult a financial advisor before making any investments. Investing involves risk, which can result in the loss of any or all principal. Peter Weitz is a registered investment advisor with Fusion Analytics Investment Partners, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, as well as a registered rep with Fusion Analytics Securities, LLC, a FINRA registered broker-dealer and SIPC member. All views expressed in this program are those of the host or guests and do not reflect the opinions of Fusion Analytics Investment Partners nor its affiliates. Your investments. How secure are you that they are secure? Do you want to know more about investing, retirement, and moving to the next level in business? Welcome to In Black and Weitz, featuring host Peter Weitz. Our program will answer all of the questions about your future and so much more. It's all about smart business and smarter investing. Now, here is your host, Peter Weitz.
Hi, good morning. Thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program, and we're going to take a little sidestep away from the business and the investing world, and we're going to talk about something that I think is near and dear to the hearts of probably all the listeners out there. I know especially me, and I'm really looking forward to today's show, and I want to get right to it. Before I do, please feel free to follow our posts on Twitter. My handle is at Peter Weitz, or you can follow me on LinkedIn, peter.weitz. And then finally, you can hit me on email as it's Peter at In Black and Weitz, or you can follow the blog at In Black and Weitz. We're going to be posting stuff from our guest all throughout the show today. So let me get started right away and introduce an interesting, not necessarily a person, but the closest thing to a human being. And it's a miniature schnauzer named Maddie. And Maddie, unconditional love, devotion, loyalty, and spirit inspired her guardians to start a charitable foundation called Maddie's Fund in her name. Dave and Cheryl Duffield fell head over heels for Maddie when she was only 10 days old. In a quote, "We held her in our arms and loved her immediately," says Dave. "Maddie melted our hearts from the first second we saw her," said Cheryl. "And her sweet ways, her stubbornness, her independence, intelligence, and her spirit and her devotion really warmed their hearts." Well, Dave Duffield, for those that don't know, is the founder of two large software companies, one named PeopleSoft, which he sold to Oracle several years ago, and recently he's the founder and CEO of a company called Workday. And for those that aren't familiar, he's considered one of the pioneers in HR technology. And he came home one day during the formation of his company, PeopleSoft, years ago, and he was playing with his dog, Maddie, and he picked her up, and he made the following promise. He said, "If we ever make some money, I promise we will give it back to you and your kind so that others can be as happy as we are today." Well, Dave and Cheryl fulfilled their promise to Maddie, and they've endowed Maddie's Fund with more than $300 million from Dave's personal fortune, and have since spent $136 million through fiscal year 2013 to save dog and cat lives. So the purpose of the fund is to ultimately eliminate kill shelters throughout the United States so that all dogs and cats can be adopted and have a warm and lovely home as Maddie had. And animals, I'm sure that animal lovers can understand that sentiment. Well, I'm excited today to announce that the CEO of Maddie's Fund, Rich Avanzino, is going to be my guest. And before we get into it with Rich, let me just tell you a little bit about his pedigree. He's viewed by many as the father of the no-kill movement. And Rich has had a major influence on companion animal welfare for his 37 years in the industry. And as president of Maddie's Fund, he focuses the Family Funds Foundation, or the $300 million endowment, in three major areas: grant giving, hands-on animal care, research, and education. Prior to being at Maddie's Fund, he was the president of the San Francisco SPCA from 1976 to 1999, where Rich led San Francisco in 94 to become the first city and county in the nation to offer an adoption guarantee for every healthy shelter cat and dog. And this has since gone into law in California as the Hayden Law, and has gone on into other cities and counties throughout the rest of the United States. So without getting too far into it, Rich is, again, the no-kill movement's most articulate spokesperson. He's been on the New York Times, the Wall Street Journals, the LA Times, USA Today, People, Parade, ABC's 2020, and he's been the person of the week on the ABC Nightly News. And I am so thrilled to have him on my show. Rich, welcome to this week's program.
Well, thank you so much, Peter. I'm really excited to join you, and what a wonderful introduction. I don't know if I'm going to live up to the billing, but I'm looking forward to it.
I have no doubt that you will. So let's just get right into it, Rich. Give me a little history of, Dave Duffield and his love of his dog and how he founded this foundation.
Well, I think you expressed it so well, Peter. All of us who are animal lovers know this, how wonderful this bond is, how it brings us joy and happiness and fun and pleasure and brings out some wonderful qualities in us in terms of nurturing and caring and speaking for those that can't speak for themselves. And Maddie was just one of those outstanding canines. And I would say most of us who have canines in our lives think that they're the most outstanding. But Dave and Cheryl think that theirs was the best of the best, and I'm sure she was. And they just, like I said, fell head over heels in love with her, and they started this wonderful organization. I'm so thankful and grateful to be part of it. And we're doing some good work, but it's all done in the spirit of this little dog, Maddie, who really wasn't with them for that long a period of time. It was a short 10 years, but 10 wonderful years. And while she passed away with a horrible ailment associated with cancer, she brought so much wonderment to their lives that they wanted, like you said in your introduction, that they wanted to spread this joy throughout America and maybe even throughout the world, so that people can take a pause from their hectic lives and enjoy love and feel nurturing and benefit from this unconditional devotion that our canines give to us.
And I have to go on record and tell you, Rich, that, I'm the happy owner of two wonderful little Shih Tzus, and so I totally understand their sentiment as to how they feel about their pet. So it was established. Let's just go over the mission statement and kind of set the tone for really why it was put together.
Okay, we were established with the mission of revolutionizing the status and well-being of companion animals. And we started out as our first challenge to create what we call the No-Kill Nation, a country that guarantees that all of its dogs and cats in our wonderful America will find a loving home if they end up, through no fault of their own, being in a shelter or with a rescue. Our country has had a sad and tattered history of taking our best friends and our family members on four legs and euthanizing them by the millions. And it's a tragedy. It's a social ill. It's something that Dave and Cheryl Duffield were very upset about, and they basically wanted to create an organization that would stop that. And we think we're on path to basically achieve our first goal, which is the establishment of a no-kill nation by 2015. And what a wonderful time that will be when we can basically celebrate the reverence for life that resides in our four-legged family members and make sure that they always have somebody to fall in love with.
And we're going to talk a lot more about that goal, which you've told me on several occasions is not a lofty goal, and we're going to focus on that heavily. So the organization was established, obviously, to create the No-Kill Nation. And when you began this journey, what was the state of pet adoption when you began?
Well, it's pretty ugly. Like I said, our history, if you look back on it, is rather shameful. We as a country, 45 years ago, were killing 24 million dogs and cats a year. A lot of hard work and the heart of the American people has helped turn that around so that today we are euthanizing 3 million dogs and cats. Or 15 dogs and cats per 1,000 people. like I said, I think we can reduce that number to the only deaths occurring in America are the unhealthy, untreatable conditions that everybody would feel was the merciful thing to do. Either the animal is dying from a suffering condition with a horrible prognosis, and it's the kind thing to do to relieve its misery, or the animal is a public health danger. And there's, in our view, America probably has to face 700,000 deaths that are in this category of unhealthy, untreatable. Or putting it another way, that we have 2.3 million dogs and cats who are having their lives sacrificed that just need somebody to fall in love with. And 2.3 million sounds like a large number, but when you realize that there are 17 million people this year that are going to acquire a pet, we just have to convince 2.3 million of those 17 million that the shelter and the rescue is the first place, the best place, I think the most fantastic place to find your next companion.
And so you've been talking, and we talked in the beginning when I was introducing you that you've broken the endowment into three major areas: grant giving, animal care, and then research and education. And right. I kind of want to focus on all three of those separately, but I want to go back to one comment you made. So essentially, there are 17 million people that are going to take in a pet this year, and there are 2.3 million that need to be adopted from a shelter. And so that's really where that education piece is going to come in, and we'll get to that. But my question is this: how do you feel about getting the word out to eliminate going to a breeder or some of these pet farms that are, where the pets are not bred properly and so forth, against going to adoption? Can you just touch on that briefly?
Well, education is everything, isn't it, Peter?
It is.
When people are aware, and especially the American people, they speak with their heart. And their heart, fortunately for animal companions, is in the right place. Nobody wants to see these horror stories. Nobody wants to see these puppy mills continue to churn out animals that usually have horrible health and behavior problems and breed at an unconscionable rate in suffering conditions that is truly abominable. We just have given a $4 million grant, a challenge grant, to the Humane Society of the United States, which is already doing some great work in shutting down these puppy mills. But we think that within 5 years, we can pretty much eliminate most of the puppy mill production. And a lot of that has to do with enforcement. A lot of that has to do with passing laws that outlaw the horrible conditions, but also working with people to understand that, if you don't know where you're buying your pet from, you could be contributing to these horrific horror stories associated with mass production of companion animals in terrible conditions. So education is part of that. Also, talking about the fabulous qualities that we share and enjoy. We've done some research in this area, and we find out that people are 7 times more likely to adopt from a shelter or a rescue if they talk to a friend, acquaintance, a coworker, somebody from their church who also has adopted from a shelter. So for the people who have already reached out and added to their family and expanded their heart to take in one of these great little guys, if they can tell their story, we find out that the American people will listen, and when they listen, they act, and when they act, lives are saved and costs are reduced, and everybody comes out of winner. Nobody wants to see these animals die, and it's a terrible cost to the taxpayer, and obviously the animal whose life is sacrificed has an end that they do not deserve. So it's a win-win-win when we get people to understand how important it is to go to a shelter, and when they do, to tell their story so that other people will understand and be aware of the wonderful work that the shelters do, but also the great companionship they can get from their 4-legged family members that come from these sources.
And that's amazing. There's 2 comments I want to make, and before we go to break. The first is that you've heard Rich say that he expects to eliminate or expect every pet to be adopted by the end of 2015 and create or eliminate the kill shelters in the United States. And he also feels that this organization is going to be able to put an end to the puppy mills within 5 years. We're going to take a quick break. We get back, we're going to drill down more on that. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz, we win by not losing.
Stephen Douglas Associates, delivering talent, impacting results. Now celebrating 30 years of bringing top talent to some of the nation's most recognizable companies and private equity firms, whether they need highly qualified executives permanently or on a project basis. Recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies in America in 2012 and 2013. To learn more, visit us at www.stephendouglas.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter@inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi, thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. We are joined today by pet advocate Rich Avanzino from Maddie's Fund. And prior to the break, we were speaking extensively about the future of eliminating kill shelters and the future of eliminating puppy mills and the aggressive plan that's been laid out by Rich and his organization. And I want to get into sort of what the organization is actually doing in the communities throughout the country right now to help eliminate both of those issues. And so, Rich, we touched on your bio, and it said one of the things that you do is grant giving. Can you briefly describe or frame out sort of some of the grants that you're giving out?
Well, we give in 3 primary areas, Peter. The first one is community collaboration. We have about 12,000 different organizations in the United States today that try to adopt out and save animal lives. And it's not uncommon in different parts of the country for these organizations who have different business models to take exception to the way others are doing business. And so it's not all uncommon to see what we call bash and trash, where organizations, instead of talking about the positives and what they are all doing to try to save animal lives, they belittle the others, they demean programs, they denigrate the other agencies. So we give out community collaborative grants that require all the organizations in a community to commit to the thing that they most all agree with, and that is to save animal lives. And in community collaborations, they're anywhere from 5 to 7 year grants. They're multi-million dollars in cost, And they have various benchmarks that have to be achieved by all the organizations working together to basically achieve the no-kill agenda. And it has created a model that we're very, very excited about, because instead of the meager resources that all these agencies have to be squandered fighting with each other, instead it's all put together in a synergistic way to basically promote the life-saving work that each one of the agencies and their backers feel is so important. So that's probably accounted for about 60% of our grant giving. It's spaying and neutering, it's adoption outreach, it's improving conditions of housing, and it's basically finding animals homes. Another major sector of our giving is to veterinary colleges. We were the first to invest in something called shelter medicine, and that's to develop a veterinary specialty so that when animals do go to shelters, there's the medical talent waiting for them to help them stay healthy if they're already fit, and if they have injury, illnesses, or behavior disorders, to help rehabilitate and cure those maladies so that the animals can go off to a new home without any of the imperfections that brought them to the shelter in the first place. And we're very excited that of the 28 veterinary colleges out there, 24 now have shelter medicine programs. And Maddie's fund is the principal and primary investor in the development of this specialty. So we're developing a manpower pool, if you will, of very talented medical specialists that are doing wonderful things for companion animals. And then the last area of grant giving is in investing in statistics. We think it's very important for our industry to have better data. And we think by getting information and making it public, we promote transparency, and transparency leads to accountability, so that everybody in their own community can see what is their shelters and rescues doing, how do they compare with other organizations in different parts of the country that have similar demographics to their community. This helps the politicians, it helps boards of directors, it helps animal lovers, it helps potential contributors to find out where are the best practices, where are the organizations that are doing not as well as others, and the organizations that aren't coming up to the standard, where are the organizations they can look to basically improve their contribution to animal welfare. So we were the first ones to develop the shelter database searchable engine that allows people to look at the various results from throughout the country. And those are the we also do other types of grants, but those are the three principal areas.
And is that data available on your website? Is that where people can go and find? Yeah, so I want to make sure everybody aware of that. It's maddiesfund.org, and you can find the data that Rich just spoke of. The other comment Rich, you said, is there's hands-on animal care, and I want to focus on something in particular. In 1998, you developed Maddie's Pet Adoption Center, and I think it's really revolutionized what sheltering's going to look like in the future. Can you talk about briefly what that is and how it's working throughout the country?
Well, we were pretty excited about it. It was to basically make home-style living for companion animals. At that time, and unfortunately it's not uncommon even today, that cats at shelters are in cages and dogs are in runs. And we thought that shelters really were halfway houses. They were rehabilitation centers and placement agencies. They weren't processing facilities. In the old days, when we were killing our dogs and cats by the tens of millions, shelters, unfortunately, at that time, were processing centers. But now when we look to the American people and we ask, what do you think about the relationship you have with our best friends, they think of them as family members. Well, you wouldn't put a family member in a cage for 10 days. Well, when my kid crashed my car, I might have done it for a day or two. But no, you wouldn't put a family member in a cage, and you certainly wouldn't put a dog in a run on a protracted basis. So we tried to create a home-style environment so that the cats had their own television shows, the dogs were in a setting that would be similar to a bedroom or similar to a office, or it would be similar to a dining room. And so in the dining room, for instance, there was a tea set on the table and there was chairs, and we even allowed we suggested that homeless people who didn't have a place to stay in San Francisco would actually be able to come in, live with the animals after hours, because we wanted our companion animals to get accustomed to the fact that they were going to have a best friend 24/7, and it's not just a 9-to-5 job. So the Maddie Center was a new contribution to the concept of what is our relationship to the dogs and cats that we love so dearly, and how we should be taking care of them, and became an example of what we wanted for our pets once they were adopted into somebody's home. We certainly didn't want our cats to go in a cage, and it would have been unacceptable to find out that our dogs would live in a kennel.
Have any other facilities similar to that been built in other parts of the country outside of San Francisco?
Yes, actually, I would say it's become the template. Not everybody has picked up all the elements of the Maddie Center, but I would say there's not a facility that hasn't been built in the last 20 years to 15 years that hasn't picked up some pieces of the Maddie Center concepts and incorporated that into their building. The Maddie Center, every dog had his own apartment, every cat had his own condominium. Like I said, the cats had fish tanks in their rooms, and the dogs had Lassie and Rin Tin Tin movies playing in the background. For some people, that was sort of over the top. But just everybody recognized that the old style of cats in cages and dogs and runs was something of the past, and was no longer going to be something for the future. So I would say, probably 30 to 40% of the shelters built today are using most of the pieces that were designed in the Maddie Center.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we've touched a little bit on what some of the accomplishments have been to date. What do you think your vision for the future is? I realize, you're going to solve two major problems here in the next couple of years, but what happens beyond that?
Well, as we started the program talking about, our mission is revolutionize the status and well-being of companion animals. For me, it's just not only taking great care of animals when they're in shelters and making sure they have wonderful homes after they've been rescued, but to also make it easier for the general public to provide the kind of care for their family members on four legs that right now is sometimes very difficult or sometimes very expensive. We as a nation spend billions and billions of dollars on our best friends because they're so near and dear to us. But it's sometimes expensive and sometimes very, very difficult, especially if you have a behavior disorder with your canine or you have a medical ailment with your cat. So I think a lot of the work that we're doing is going to find cures for the incurable, to make sure that animals previously considered impossible to place have loving homes, and to make it inexpensive and easy for shelters and rescues and animal lovers to take care of their companion animals, so that this idea that we have a surplus or an overpopulation problem is going to be a distant thought that everybody looks back on and says, oh my God, how could we as a country have done that in those days? Because it has been wrong, it is wrong, and it doesn't have to be any longer.
And that's interesting. I think it's when we get back from the break, Rich, what I want to talk about is I want to focus on that and talk about your vision of the future and how the organization's philosophy has been able to make you so successful. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz program on Voice America Business.
From the boardroom to you, Voice America Business Network.
Stephen Douglas Associates, delivering talent, impacting results. Now celebrating 30 years of bringing top talent to some of the nation's most recognizable companies and private equity firms, whether they need highly qualified executives permanently or on a project basis. Recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies in America in 2012 and 2013. To learn more, visit us at www.stephendouglas.com.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz, we win by not losing.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hey, thanks. Welcome back to the program. I'm very pleased and excited to have Rich Avanzino from Maddie's Fund as my guest today. And we've been talking about the future of pet adoption, elimination of kill shelters, and the ultimate elimination of puppy mills. But during the break, Rich and I were talking, and Rich, I did get an email, and I want to read it to you and see if we can comment on it. It's a pretty simple question. Are grants available for all shelter-related facilities in the country, and how do we go about finding you to get one?
Well, great question. First, in terms of finding out about us, as you've already indicated, the best source is our website, maddiesfund.org. That does spell out our grant-giving criteria, and the criteria is relatively simple, but still pretty complex. We require our applicants to, number one, start off by giving us data on a community-wide basis. And it has to be community-wide, which for us, most of the time is going to be a county. Sometimes it's larger and becomes a region. We even have a couple of states that have applied for grants. But all the organizations within that jurisdiction has to submit the data, has to come up with a business plan, and lay out how they're going to accomplish over the 7-year grant period achieving the goal of creating a no-kill community. And that task might sound like it's sort of easy, but actually is pretty difficult, especially considering getting the cooperation and the unified commitment to life-saving. But they are available. We think that we're on the brink, like I said earlier on, about achieving a no-kill nation by 2015. So we think that giving out a lot of community collaboration grants with the 7-year duration isn't really in alignment of what we think is going to happen for saving all the animals with or without our grants, because we think the American public, 17 million to only 2.3 million, have to be convinced we can do that without the organization is doing some of the things that we like them to do when we're talking about collaborating, working together, and committing to the singular purpose of ending the deaths of our family members on four legs. So the grant criteria is there on our website. We would love to have people look at it, but probably the most beneficial aspects of the website at this point in time is the information that we distribute and disseminate through our webinars and our newsletters and the other communication tools that we use through our web facility. And then learn from the experience of all the other organizations that have done some outstanding work to make their progress towards no-kill achievable.
Thank you for answering that. During the break, you and I were talking about the vast amount of data and how amazing the data collection you've had is. And it's had actually, in your opinion, a greater impact on some of the issues here in the country. And I'm wondering if you can expand upon that.
Well, unless you know where you've been and where you're at, it's very, very hard to figure out how you're going to get to where you want to go. So we think data collection is a critical component to understanding about the organization, but about your community, and also even about the nation. Because unless you know from data and statistics how successful you are with the dollars that you allocate, it's very hard to really get a business sense on how well you're doing. And part of the Maddie's Fund agenda is to bring a business acumen into the philanthropic sector that rises to the level of the commitment and passion that the people have for the work that they do. In our field, as I believe in almost all causes, we have some very emotional, excited, wonderfully dedicated, super performing, great passionate people working to save animal lives. But the Duffields found in their early grant-giving years that the zeal that the people had, the passion that they had for this cause, was not being matched by their business abilities. And so part of the Maddie's Fund agenda is to improve the business abilities, improve the efficiencies, improve the effectiveness, so that the grant dollars and the donation dollars that are available to these charities are put to maximum benefit. And it has to start with data collection, statistic analysis, and then a business plan to move forward to make it successful.
Pretty amazing. And I think you and I have spoken in the past about it, that, you know, Dave Duffield was very keen, very pointed about having this organization run just like a big business.
Exactly. And we call ourselves venture philanthropists, which is a minority concept in the donor world. But we believe in giving large grants, multi-million-dollar grants, over a defined period of time, usually 5 to 7 years, with measurable benchmarks that have to be achieved in order for the donation dollars to continue to flow. In that way, people know what they're trying to get to. They have a way of analyzing what is working and what is not working. They have the ability to benefit from the statistical information to make modifications. So for the things that are less than perfectly successful, they can rethink, retool, and reevaluate the things that are most beneficial to them. And then at the end of that, there's a reward. And the reward is the accomplishment of the goal, the celebration of the great success, and the ability to energize other people to contribute to a successful operation. We think charities, and particularly animal welfare, is going to be most successful when people see how great we are all doing, and have the chance to share with their heart and their pocketbooks their enthusiasm for the job being well done.
Truly remarkable, and I think it's a statement for all nonprofits out there that, you know, that are out looking for grants. If they can get measurable and defined results, it'll certainly make the grants more worthwhile. Next question I got for you, rather, not the last one, because we've got plenty of time to go, is, so you've got this vision of your organization, but yet it's got a much more of a global impact. And you and I have spoken at length about that. And I'm wondering if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about how you feel there's so much more to it than simply pet adoption and the elimination of killing animals.
Well, like I said, I think it brings out the best in the human spirit. When we think of our species and what we can do when we're benefiting from the human-animal companion bond. To me, it's rather amazing. I mean, we nurture our best friends. We love our best friends. We have the fun and the joy. We get the unconditional devotion. I mean, think of how wonderful life is to come home from work and have the dog sitting at the doorstep, panting and jumping up and down and sharing with those wide open eyes the enthusiastic welcome. They don't say, boy, I had a rough day here waiting for you to get home. They don't say, boy, my life, I had a bunch of bumps in it. They're all about, come on in, Dad. I'm so thrilled to have you. I'm so excited that you're going to be here. And then in turn, like I said, we spend money on them. We make sure that their medical needs are taken care of. We exercise with them. The studies that have been done in terms of what it does for our own health in terms of social interaction, medical well-being, improved philosophy. What these dogs and cats do just through their unconditional love is absolutely miraculous. And when we reach out and provide for them, I think it does things like reduces the acceptability of violence in society. It brings out that characteristic of wanting to help those that cannot speak or care for themselves. And if we all embrace the kinds of qualities that were needed to share in this relationship, I think it makes for a far gentler footprint on this planet and makes for a better Earth in terms of what the human species should be doing to protect our environment and all of our creatures and everything that is important in our lives and in the planet's life.
But as you were telling that story about how excited you get, I got a message from our sound engineer here at the studio, and he said that it's a great feeling when he gets home from work and his dogs are so excited to see him. And I think of one other story is that, I bring my little girl Shih Tzu up to see my mother from time to time, and we go out to dinner, we go out to eat, whatever we do, and we come home. We make my mother walk in the house first because the dog goes so crazy when she walks in. And my mother's comment is, no one ever gets this excited to see me. And I think that's just such an amazing thing with pets. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
Climbing Mount Everest is an amazing feat, and many have died trying to do so. However, more people have died descending Mount Everest than in reaching the summit. Part of the problem may be that people are so focused on reaching their objective that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will do or should be prepared for afterward. Similarly, people are so focused on saving for retirement and reaching retirement that they fail to plan appropriately for what they will encounter once they have actually retired. With 1 out of every 4 65-year-olds today living past the age of 90, you may be retired longer than you are actually working. Have you devised a plan, process, and discipline to ensure that you will not run out of money? If you are not sure what to do, then simply contact Peter Weitz and his retirement team at Fusion Analytics. We help manage human emotions using 3 proprietary investment techniques. Our job is to evaluate the forces that the typical investor can't see so that wealth is preserved and not lost. Find out more at inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled Weitz. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. In Black and Weitz, we win by not losing.
Stephen Douglas Associates, delivering talent, Impacting results. Now celebrating 30 years of bringing top talent to some of the nation's most recognizable companies and private equity firms, whether they need highly qualified executives permanently or on a project basis. Recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies in America in 2012 and 2013. To learn more, visit us at www.stephendouglas.com.
The business community's first choice in Internet Talk Radio. Voice America Business Network.
You are listening to In Black and Weitz. To reach Peter Weitz or his guest today, please call 1-866-472-5790. That's 1-866-472-5790. You may also send an email to peter@inblackandweitz.com. Weitz is spelled W-E-I-T-Z. Email Peter at inblackandweitz.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Hi, thanks. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Peter Weitz. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio show. We're joined today by Rich Avanzino, the no-kill advocate from San Francisco and the executive director of Maddie's Fund, an organization designed to eliminate that. And we've talked a lot about the proliferation of his organization and what he's done in that regard and how successful they've been. And I think, what I'd like to talk about at the end is how there's much more of an impact beyond what they're doing, and there's a much greater good that the purpose of this organization serves. And Rich and I were talking about that in the break. So, Rich, if you want to expand a little bit about why you feel that your organization's goal has such a greater impact on the community.
Well, there's so many great causes in our country today, and so many social ills that need help. Whether we're talking about human homelessness, whether we're talking about drug addiction and the need for rehabilitation, whether we're talking about some of the medical conditions that take so many family members from us, there is just a huge number of important causes, and the American heart and wallets have been very open to trying to help cure many of these ills. But I really would like to see more of the Duffield philosophy brought into the charitable world. And so for donors and contributors and benefactors and people who are writing their wills to talk to the causes and the organizations that they're interested in investing in and seeing if they're being transparent with their numbers, seeing if they're basically setting goals that have measurable benchmarks that can be evaluated in terms of how fast they are moving towards their objective, and following those organizations and encouraging those organizations as they successfully accomplish the task at hand, as opposed to just opening up their wallets and giving to a cause and not thinking much more about giving good money to good people for a good effort. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think so much more can be gained if you're asking your charity, what are your goals? How do you identify your accomplishments? How do you offer transparency and accountability for the dollars that you are giving to us for us doing the good work that you're trying to provide? But as we talk about solving our social ills, and basically eliminating some of these terrible difficulties that society is dealing with, let's also celebrate and reward those agencies that are accomplishing it. And as it relates to our field of animal welfare, I think of how much we get out of the relationship. For instance, just for a microsecond, talking about the dogs. We have dogs that help the hearing impaired. We have dogs that help the folks that are blind. We have dogs that help folks that are in wheelchairs. We have sniffer dogs. We have dogs. Maddie's Fund just recently gave a lot of money to create a war memorial for the dogs that have served in all the American wars, the first national monument to honor any animal, but this one was to honor the dogs that helped our military defend our country. These companion animals deserve so much from us, and to not eliminate yet this terrible tragedy of seeing these animals' lives being sacrificed on a daily basis is just, in my view, intolerable. With so much little effort, we can see that our best friends and our family members on four legs that mean so much to us, that give us such love, that are so important in our lives, that give us so much joy and basically help our species survive. All they need, and they certainly deserve, is to have a loving home. And for us that have pets, next time we add to our family, let's go to a shelter, let's go to a rescue, let's end this tragedy, let's help the organizations that are working so hard to accomplish this goal, but let's hold them accountable with the dollars we give them to see that the job gets done.
Hey, Rich, tell me a little bit about that grant for the War Memorial. That sounds really interesting.
Well, Dave and Cheryl was watching television one night, and they heard about this war memorial that was being developed by John Burnham Foundation, a guy that's been working since the Vietnam War on trying to get America to honor its service dogs. He was in Vietnam as a handler, and like all handlers, he loved his dog dearly. The dog was not only protecting him and his troop, but the nation. And I don't know, a lot of people know about the end of the story, but when we left Vietnam as a country with our military, we left 9,000 dogs behind that were serving and protecting and helping us with our mission. And almost all of them died, and died very tragically. And John Burnham did not want their souls to be forever lost or forgotten, and he wanted to create this war memorial to honor them, but not just the dogs of Vietnam, but the war dogs of World War II and Desert Storm and World War I, and all the way going back in American history. And we've never had a national monument recognized by Congress and the President of the United States honoring an animal. So John was successful in getting the legislation passed, and the Duffield stepped up along with Petco, and I think Nature's Balance in funding this war memorial, which was dedicated in San Antonio a few months ago at Lackland Air Force Base. And it's a beautiful monument to basically pay homage to all the dogs of all the American wars going back to the founding of our nation.
Touching, amazing, and timely story. I definitely am going to look into that on the internet as soon as you and I are finished, because I'd love to see what that looks like. Last thing, Rich, is what can we do as dog lovers? What can we do to get involved and help?
Well, first, I don't have to tell you because you're doing it in such a great way, but is to love our dogs and to recognize how important they are in our lives. And we already reach out as animal lovers to do everything for them to keep them well, to make sure that they're seen by a veterinarian and to make sure that they're wearing their identification, et cetera, et cetera. But also is to tell people about the relationship and how beneficial it is. And when I hear you tell your story about visiting your mom with the dog, I mean, when people understand how special, how wonderful, how unbelievably fantastic it is to have this human-animal companion bond, I think they come to appreciate it even more, those that already have it, but for those who haven't enjoyed it yet, understanding some of the benefits that are associated with it. And when we talk about those stories and we mention the fact that shelters and rescues have some animals that fit all the potential necessities you could even ask for in a dream list, that you go to a shelter or rescue and you acquire your next companion from one of these agencies. And I would say some of the agencies, work really hard. They have great customer service. The facilities look really good, and it's a fun experience for the family. Not all shelters, however, fit that model. But all shelters have animals that need lives to be saved. So even if the organization or the facility isn't up to snuff or isn't performing at the highest standard, those animals still need to be saved. So think about using the internet. We think Pet Finder and Adopt a Pet and a bunch of other search engines can help you find a good companion based upon the criteria you're looking for. We are also huge fans of the Shelter Pet Project. We are the co-investor in developing an awareness program that's being marketed by all the TV and radio stations with the help of the Ad Council. This is generating about $140 million in free advertising promoting shelter and rescue adoptions. If you see one of those things being played on your local TV station, thanking them for playing those ads, I think also goes a long way. And of course, donating and volunteering and fostering. I mean, those are the real heroic contributions to helping our cause. If you can not only adopt, but you can volunteer or foster, those are life-saving efforts that have immediate and personal results and are just part of the equation to see that we have a more humane society.
And Rich, I appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for being on the program. I mean, obviously, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I know near and dear to the hearts of all my listeners. And again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your knowledge, and more importantly, I thank you for what you're doing in the pet community to help our little friends. And I look forward to speaking with you again. I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of questions after the show ends. I know you're going to be more than happy to answer any of those questions. And I encourage all of you, all the listeners, feel free to send pictures. I'll be happy to post them on our Facebook page at In Black and Weitz, or certainly blog them at the In Black and Weitz website. But Rich, again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And woof.
Wolf is right. Hey, great. Thank you. We had a great show. I really love this. Looking forward to next week's show. We're going to do a little recap on the market. Again, thanks to our guest, Rich Avanzino, the president of Maddie's Fund. Make it a great week, folks. You're listening to the In Black and Weitz radio program on Voice America Business.
Thank you again for tuning in to In Black and Weitz. Please join your host, Peter Weitz, again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 7 a.m. Pacific Time for another edition of the program on the Voice America Business Channel. Have a safe week.